Today I'm joined by Alexander Lowry, who is Executive Director and also Professor in MS in Financial Analysis program at Gordon College. Alexander, welcome.
Pleasure to be with you, Scott, today.
Wow, there's so many areas for us to talk about, from your consulting days to your time at JPMorgan Chase to your current teaching and advising boards. Where should we begin?
I can give you a little bit of background on the story to set the scene, if that would be helpful.
That would be great. Let's do that.
So a lot of time is what I spent with my college students and my grad students, helping them think about their careers. I started out in management consulting. I think strategy consulting is a brilliant place for a lot of people. You're coming out of school, you're working in different industries, executives, people you really have no basis sitting around the table with when you're about 20 years old, and you're learning so much. And you think about innovation, how do you grow and develop? You're working with people who are leaders in the industries. Really sort of blows your mind and sets the scene for the rest of your career. So I think that was a great trajectory for me.
Excellent. Now, let's talk a little bit about your time at JPMorgan Chase, because you covered a lot of different areas like private banking as well as some of the foundation work. Tell me about some of the work that you did there, and what did you find most gratifying?
So I should probably set the scene there as well. So I joined JP Morgan right around the financial crisis, right after the London whale scandal. And JP Morgan is considered one of the best run banks in the world, probably the best banker of our generation, Jamie Dimon, running it. But we still make mistakes like everybody else. So the London whale scandal was this huge brouhaha for several $1 billion. People haven't heard of it. Basically, some trader in London was doing things he shouldn't have done. And they talk about companies being too big to fail like JP Morgan. It probably was, even with JP Morgan being run by Jamie Dimon. So an example was they had a risk committee without any risk experts on the risk committee. And Jamie Dimon will tell you that's risk 101. How did we get that wrong? So you're thinking about some of the smartest people in the room still making mistakes. So I was brought in to help clean that up. So they put a new unit in place to try and get a sense of what are the actual risks and the issues we're dealing with in our business. So my consulting background came over to help set that up for the business. And then from there, after we'd identified a lot of the issues, they put me into the business to help solve some of the issues that we'd solved. So it was an amazing time because JP Morgan is 250,000 people. That is a battleship. It doesn't turn on a dime. How do you make change happen there? They needed a lot of innovation, and that wasn't an easy place to do it.
Yeah, actually, that's a great starting point. So let's talk about that. So when you have such a large behemoth that's been around for, JP Morgan Chase really for centuries at this point, is how do you start to introduce change? Because I know you've been involved in transformation, change management as well. And here you're talking about audit controls, governance, and new metrics and performance metrics. How did you start to introduce those and actually turn the tide a little bit?
It's interesting. So I think the simple analogy would be it's not like the military when you imagine like there's a general from on high or the president who says we will do this and everybody marches in that direction, right? So you got a lot of different voices, a lot of smart people think they have the right answers. You're really building champions of change. Once you come up with what you think the brilliant strategy is, you have to do that change management aspect, get everybody bought into it. You're literally doing lots of events for coffees and lunches and dinners. You're getting all the senior management bought into it, bringing it down to their people. Because at the end of the day, the statistics are very clear. Individuals follow the leadership of both the people in the C-suite, but also their individual line manager. So if your line manager is telling you the opposite of what the CEO is telling you, you're probably not going to follow through on it. So to get 250,000 people to march to new orders, even if they came by the government, took a huge amount of time and effort. It was never an easy change.
Yeah, so that's a great point that you bring up. And this is some of the things that we're seeing in terms of the pressure that CEOs and blue chip companies are facing, is that even though they're the ones that's at the helm of change management, they can't seem to push it down into kind of the middle and the line manager level. And really the resistance for change is really at that level. So how do you actually penetrate the message and for them to view change as something positive versus a threat to their existence and their livelihood?
I think that's the right answer. I'll give you a simple example of what not to do. So I read an article about the longest serving U.S. civil servant when she retired. A local reporter went out to interview her and accidentally asked the right question in the middle of it. He said, "How did you have such a long-standing career?" Her simple answer was, "I never said yes." Right? Think about a civil servant. You can't be fired is the joke, but she never said yes to anything else. Like, this was my individual job and I would never do anything else because it was hard. I didn't get paid for it, etc. You've got to have an opposite mentality, right? If you were in a business for profit and you're trying to stay at the forefront, do things really well, I think part of the pitch is we need to be the best of the best. We need to grow and change. We need to lead the industry. Sometimes that means taking some pain because we're out there trying to push the boat out and do the right things for our clients, for the country, for everybody else. So I think you have to get everybody bought into it of like, this is bigger than just us. This is a larger purpose.
So let me get a little bit more kind of controversial in the sense of you try to inspire, you try to educate, you try to inform and influence, but at some point, some segment of that organization, whether it's the line managers or a little bit higher, are going to be resistant. So at that point, do you just let them be what they are and just continue what they were doing? Or do you have to make the hard decision of reorganizing, including potentially considering who do we need to let go and for what reason?
Yeah, I think you always approach it from a positive way in the beginning of, we want to win the hearts and minds. We want to bring everybody around. But the reality is, if you're talking those sorts of large numbers, you will never bring everybody around. Even on a small team, let's say you have 13 people, if you're the new leader of an organization and you're talking to all of your top team, if some of them are not going to be bought into it, they might not be all of the people to be on your top team, and whether they need to be in another role or another opportunity elsewhere. Sometimes it's not a good fit, and you'll have to make those tough decisions.
Yeah, that's a great point. And I think one of the effective aspects of being a great leader is the ability to fire and fire quickly. So tell me about maybe a story, something concrete that the listeners can put their teeth around, whether it's your work at JPMorgan Chase or your prior work in consulting, PA consulting, where perhaps maybe you were confronted with innovation change, whether it was a product or a company. And how did you go about that? And what was some of the biggest challenges that you experienced?
So let's stick with JP Morgan, just because it's a story that everybody will resonate with. So you have a very regulated industry in financial services, and after the crisis, the government was setting lots of rules. These rules are not necessarily always clear. They were not necessarily always thought through. They might have had the best intentions, but it wasn't just the US regulators you're dealing with. So JP Morgan's around the world. You have regulators in every part of the world who are coming up with rules, also trying to do the right thing, sometimes conflicting rules with each other, a lot of uncertainty. You've got a business that doesn't stand still, like you're painting the car while you're driving at this point, right? So how do you make all of that change happen? In the same point, doing it in real time, because there's not a pause of, oh, we'll just stop trading for a little bit and implement these rules. So you have all of this to go, which made it really fun, right? Every day was intense. Every day was different. You never know what was coming up. JB Diamond himself is paying attention to the reports that we're sending up, so he wants to know what's going on. So what you have is a situation where there's a lot of pressure. There's a lot of smart people focused on it, wanting to make it happen, but also resistance from the business, because the business is saying, hey, I'm still doing my stuff today. I'm still interacting with the client. I'm still selling to these people. So you are literally trying to say, I need you to take on something extra now in addition to the day job, because we need to not only get in front of this problem, but solve what we had as a problem in the past. That was that sort of hearts and minds campaign that you're going around, and you're trying to employ people's emotions and get an investment of, this is JP Morgan. We've been here, like you've said, for hundreds of years. We plan to be here for hundreds of years more. So the stories we would say is, if a country, pick Italy, for example, goes into crisis now, which is a distinct possibility, we would not bail out. We would still be there for them. We need to make sure we're ready to be there to help them. So individual clients or massive clients, whatever it might be.
Yeah, but I think, one of the things that's important when we talk about emotion and individual change level is their incentive structure. So depending on the role that some of these people that you're trying to influence, if their compensation is based on transactions and trades and so forth, they're more interested in focusing on that versus, let's say, maybe a project-oriented initiative that's meant to help with some of the risk mitigation, new governance, and so forth. So how do you get through that mindset? And at some point, like you said, you just, assume that a certain percentage you're not going to get through, and you have to make some decisions around that, but you focus on the champions that's actually going to influence others.
I think you covered it right there. There are a couple of parts, but like the change champions are essential. Figuring out the people that, imagine as a social media influencer, right? That's the equivalent of who is going to be able to influence other people to come along with you, because those are bought into it. And for the other people, what are the incentives? What are the carrots that you can use? Now, the nice thing working in financial services, you have a lot of monetary carrots. And we know money is the ideal motivator, but usually we can't get it right. So it's very hard to make it work correctly. But if you can, it's magical for the people who are working in Wall Street. And we would play with those numbers. So we would change on an annual basis. What are the different incentives? You would take a certain amount, and maybe it was a 10% pot that you would be able to adjust on a different year. And of course, your bonus is partly done the company at the high level, your division, your sub area underneath it. So you can help people understand that if we don't solve this, it's going to impact, say, the investment banking division, which is the biggest cash cow, therefore will impact your bonus as well. So you're able to help people understand that it actually will impact your wallet too.
Yeah, great. Excellent. Great point. Let's switch gears to talk about your podcast, which is called The Boardroom Bound. And it looks like in a very short period of time, you've actually done great, And I know you've been trying to get people to vote and get you guys even more visibility. Tell us about that, and how does that tie into your work as an advisor to boards and CXOs?
So one of the things I'm passionate about is board work. I've been doing it for about 20 years and absolutely love it. It's a space that I feel like I can give back from, say, the management consulting days to working on Wall Street and dealing with executives, helping them solve their problems. And it's an opportunity just like this now. Podcasting is just changing the world in terms of what people have at their fingertips. So it's ironic that of the 700,000 to 800,000 podcasts that are out there, very few are actually focused on the boardroom. And you think about some of the most senior people who have the ability to make change, very busy people. Podcasts are perfect. They can listen to it when they want to. There's also so much interest now in other people of getting bored. So diversity of thought is so important to have in the boardroom. That's how we'll get to innovation. We wanted to give another opportunity for people to get the training and the skills they needed. So we launched Boardroom Bound in February, and we've thrilled by how it's grown since then. And just like you were talking about, podcastawards.com is now considering it for one of their 14th annual opportunities.
That's excellent. Congratulations.
Thanks.
Give us one more example, maybe from your advising on the board, of something that you've done in the last, recent years, where you made a huge impact to that board and ultimately that organization.
So I would say one of the passion boards for me, I'm on the YMCA of here north of Boston, which is one of the 30 biggest Ys in the country. And you think about an organization that's constantly doing good, the YMCA comes to mind for me. So it's a combination of my skill sets and my interests. I absolutely love it. A great way to give back to the community. And from my background coming in with the strategic consulting mindset, how do we bring that to what we do? So think about how the world of fitness has changed. So 20 years ago, it would have been gym and swim. And that's fine. But now you think of the stratosphere, maybe there's the Equinox levels up at the top, those beautiful places where the beautiful people go to work out. And then you've got sort of Blink Fitness, Planet Fitness at the bottom, where it's like $1 a month and the masses go to work out. And you've got somewhere in the middle where you've got a YMCA, which is also doing healthy minds and bodies and giving back to the community. How do you get that message across? So helping lead the strategic committee there to help them consider how do they position their facilities, how do they position themselves in the community, how do they make sure their message is getting out there is a great way for me to help, because otherwise we'll just get squeezed out if you're in the middle of the market. Not a good place to be.
Yeah, that's interesting. What you're talking about is something that a traditional, let's say, a PR or even a storytelling agency would get involved in terms of positioning and messaging. But here you are making these types of influences and advice to the board level. It's fascinating. One point, and then I'll ask the mandatory question we always ask is, one of the things I noticed is that you seem to be continually working on refining your skill set. So you're very active with Toastmasters. So tell the audience in terms of what have you gained from Toastmasters and why do you continue to participate?
So for me, the simple message is selling, right? Everyone is always selling. If you're a salesman, it's clear, but otherwise you're selling. Like we're having a communication now. I'm selling some sort of message. You could be selling yourself in your review to your boss, or trying to get a job, or trying to communicate to your wife that this is where I think we should go for dinner tonight, whatever it might be. We're always selling something. Toastmasters is a nonprofit organization around the world dedicated to improving public speaking skills. And the reality is that all of us need to be better at that. Not all of us are at your level, Scott, on front of stage talking to 10,000 people on a regular basis. For some people, that's a terrifying idea. Personally, I'd rather be giving the eulogy than be in the box. But yet, when you look at like the top 5 fears, public speaking is always number 1 and death is number 2. I find that ironic, right? So it's about helping people get over that. And for me, communicating the message is great. I love doing public speaking. I love doing keynote speeches, but I wasn't ready to do that at the beginning of my career. So helping to refine that message. But Toastmasters is also about giving back. So not only are you practicing, you're giving feedback to others. So you're learning how to give feedback, how to receive feedback. I think those are great skills, and I encourage everybody I work with to participate as well.
That's tremendous advice. Alexander, we only have 1 minute left. Share with us your greatest business failure and what lessons have you learned that others can take away from?
I would encourage everybody to fail on a regular basis. If you're not failing, you're not pushing yourself hard enough, right? If you're doing the easy stuff, it's okay. I remember I was involved in my consulting days on the biggest project my company had ever run. We had 125 consultants on it. We weren't used to projects like that. I was in charge of the first major stream of the project, had never been in charge of something that big before, and went in leading this team thinking, I got the demands from the senior manager, we're just going to go make it happen. And the rest of the team said, there's no way we're going to make that happen. This was a government entity, is working with civil servants. They're like, why would we work nights and weekends? It's unrealistic. Just say no. I can't say no. So I worked the nights and the weekends to make it happen. That's not successful for the long term. We're working that short-term case, but it really helped me figure out my leadership style.
Great. So today I've been joined by Alexander Lowry, who is a professor as well as executive director of the Masters in Science and Financial Analysis program at Gordon College. He's also an advisor to boards and CEOs and has tremendous experience in banking as well as in consulting. So Alexander, it's been a real pleasure.
Scott, it was great to be with you today.